You're listening to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guests. And I got to tell you something, people. A few weeks ago, I mentioned how when me and Joanne were filling out the application for our wedding license, it actually asked if we were related, which threw us off. It was crazy. So today, we actually went in to the county clerk or whatever it is to give them the application, and you sit down with the lady. And when it came to that part, the lady said to Joanne, "Are you related to Steve?" She said to me, "Am I related to Joanne?" And I asked the lady, I go, "Why do you even ask that?" And I found out that in New Jersey, second cousins can marry, which blew my mind. Anyway, we have a great show today. I'm going to tell you something. I listened to my guest's latest album, and she sings one of my favorite groups, and she just kicks ass. And my guest is Juliana Hatfield. How you doing, Juliana?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. So I listened to your lady sent me your new album. Her new album is Juliana Hatfield Sings the Police. How did you? It's great. And how did you pick the Police? Have they been a big influence to you throughout your life?
Well, I like everything that I do. It was really just a whim or an idea that just popped into my head. You know, like last year I had done an album of all Olivia Newton-John songs because she was a big favorite of mine when I was a kid. And the Police was just another band that was really a big deal in my life when I was an adolescent. So, yeah, I don't know, like the songs are just like really, really fun. I always was able to sing along really easily to Sting's voice because he's got such a high voice for a guy, and I just felt, I don't know, when I'm something's going on, like I'm exploring the things that were important to me in my adolescence, and the Police was one of those bands that was important to me back then.
What was funny about the Police is a lot of people, younger people today, just hear them on classic rock. A lot of people don't understand. I mean, I saw them at JFK in Philadelphia in front of 100,000 people. I saw them in Dodger Stadium in LA in front of a huge crowd. A lot of people don't know how they affected so many of our lives because it was music we never really had heard.
I know, yeah. I mean, they were huge for a while there. They started out as kind of, they were playing, when they first came to Boston where I live, they played a small club, or a smaller venue, and then they shot into the stratosphere and they became one of the biggest bands ever. But, yeah, they think they were very, they affected a lot of people, a lot of musicians, and, I mean, I think that they're kind of, some people have mixed feelings about the Police and about Sting, but it's kind of undeniable the kind of influence they had and how they were unique. At the time they had a sound that it didn't really sound like any other band. I mean, they took from reggae and from other genres, but Sting's voice was always unique, and as players they all had really original styles.
And, a lot of us back then, we didn't see three people in a band much, except for me. Like my older brother listened to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but I wasn't used to seeing three people.
Yeah, and that's what I thought was one of the things that was so great about them in the beginning. They would tour as a trio, and it was raw. They weren't. It was kind of unpolished. And the first three albums, if you listen to them now, go back and listen to them, it's surprising how raw and unpolished they sound, and it's really, that's why they hold up so well. It's because it's refreshing how unpolished it all sounds, and it sounds like three guys in a studio playing together, rather than a whole bunch of overdubs being laid on top with care. It just sounds like three guys playing music together. So
when you got the whim to do this album, as you said, you're working on whims, do you have to contact the band, or what was your whole process of putting this album together? And how did you pick the songs, too?
Well, like I said, I had just come off of recording an album of Olivia Newton-John songs, which was, that was a unique challenge because her voice is just, it's very, she's a very talented vocalist, very adept, and do a lot with her voice. She's an underrated singer, I think. So it was challenging as a singer to sing all those songs, but it was really fulfilling for me to just to express my love for Olivia Newton-John and to breathe some new kind of energy into the songs. But now I forget your question. Oh, how did I go? How did I choose the police?
Yeah, did you have to contact them to get the rights to play it?
You know, that's a question for the record company. I know that there are publishing issues that we have to get permission from the people who publish the songs, but he did. The label was able to do that. So everything's in the clear. It's really not that complicated.
Okay.
It's just a question of, you just have to take care of these simple legalities and copyright legalities, and after that, it's good. We're good to go.
So it's clear sailing. Now, being a policeman, as you are and I am, how do you go about picking the songs you want to put on this album?
Well, it's not a very systematic system that I have. It's like there are some songs that I just don't even have to think about. Like, I knew I wanted to do certain songs. Like, now I can't think of any of them. Like, something like, for me, I really wanted to do, sorry, I'm totally losing my
Murder by Numbers? That was great, the version you did.
Oh, yeah, like, no, actually, that one wasn't a definite from the beginning. Something like, Can't Stand Losing You. I just kind of, oh, no, wait, something like Every Breath You Take, Can't Stand Losing You. I just kind of knew those are songs that I can, relate to, and they're so strong, they're so solid that I just knew I wanted to try them. And then there were certain other ones, like Hunger for You, the one that's in French. I had a personal connection to that one, and because I once tried to write a song. I did once write a song in French and sang it, and I studied French in school, and so I really wanted to sing the French song, and so that was it. And then another one I was interested in was, I have a story for every song, Hole in My Life was on my list of songs that I thought I have to have some kind of a personal connection to the song. So it's either like I relate to the psychodrama in a song like Every Breath You Take. It's this obsessive sort of a sort of obsessive feeling that I've dealt with myself, and I understand that it's like I understand the darkness in the song. And then another one, Hole in My Life, also has this sort of darkness, loneliness that at one point in my life I could really relate to. And then there are other ones that I think have resonance today, socially, culturally, politically, like Rehumanize Yourself and Murder by Numbers, stuff that's exposing the evil of the ruling class, basically, stuff like that. I felt they really had a place in today's culture.
Now, when you record them, you have to do your own spin on them, but you're a fan of them. So I'm not a musician, so I wouldn't, if I listen to music and I appreciate it, and I would never try to sing it because I can't sing. But you're very talented. When you record them, do you feel, is there pressure on you to feel like you're giving justice to them?
Yeah, I don't want to let anyone down. I don't want to let any police bands down. I don't want to piss any fans off. I don't want to butcher the song. I don't want to do anything that doesn't make any sense. I don't want to make a spectacle of a song just for the sake of making it sound different. I have to have a connection to the material, and I feel like I have to have a respect for the original versions. I don't want to disrespect the band. I don't want to piss anybody off. But at the same time, I have to feel free to mess around with stuff and to make it my own. And I have a good confidence when I'm doing a cover. I feel like I feel like I have a knack for recording covers, and I kind of know what I'm doing in it, so I don't worry too much about it. I feel like if I have a connection to the song and to the melody, I can really make it my own pretty easily.
Well, it's funny. When I listened to this album, I didn't consider them covers. I considered them interpretations. Because I think a cover is when, you go to the local bar and they're playing Foghat to the T. I mean, yours have your own spin.
Yeah, well, thanks. That's a nice compliment, because I do feel like I make the songs my own. I feel like, my voice is pretty original sounding. I don't really sound like anyone. So as soon as I start singing someone else's song, it kind of becomes my own, because of my voice doesn't really sound like anyone else. So I have that going for me. That's a sort of easy trick way to make it my own, is just to open my mouth and sing it. And the fact that I'm a woman and singing's a man, that's another way that I can differentiate my versions really easily.
Now, when did you start playing music? What made you get into this career? You've had a great career. You've released a ton of material. But were you musically inclined as a child, or when did this musical thing grab you?
I was always playing music. I was singing. There was a piano. There was always a piano in my house. And my mother, who was a journalist by trade, she taught piano lessons on the side, and she also accompanied the church choir on piano. So she was teaching piano lessons in my house, so the music was always around, and I always played piano because it was there. I took piano lessons. That was my first instrument, actually, and my dad also played piano on the side.
So you started playing piano. Now, when did you move to when playing guitar? I heard that you heard X and you loved that band, and that got you into rock.
Yeah, well, when I was about 10 years old, I asked my parents if I could have guitar lessons, and they didn't know anything about guitar, so my mother, she could not teach me guitar as she could teach me piano. So they found a local guy who was the son of my favorite English teacher at my high school, and he was a guitar teacher. He taught me some acoustic guitar skills, taught me about chords and stuff, and he would force me to sing and play at the same time, which at the time when I was 10 years old, it was kind of mortifying to sing in front of anyone, but I remember playing. He taught me the chords to Leaving on a Jet Plane, and he made me sing Leaving on a Jet Plane when I was playing it. So I guess I have him to thank for that. And then later on in high school, that was when I discovered all the great, I don't know, they were calling it post-punk or college rock, quote-unquote college rock, like X, like early REM, The Replacements, stuff like that. And that was when I realized, like, wow, I really could do this myself. I really want to do this. I got to play in a band. In high school was where that spark was ignited.
Now, you went to Berkeley, right?
I did, yes.
Now, was that because, that's a very, very, very good musical school. Was it hard to get in, and what was the process back then?
Well, I remember that you had to declare, when applying, you had to declare your instrument, and I applied as a piano student because I had all these years of training on piano, and I had no vocal training at the time, and I didn't really know much about guitar in terms of like reading guitar music, and so I kind of cheated the system. I got in as a piano student, knowing that I wanted to study voice, actually, knowing that I didn't want to study piano, because by that point I had lost all interest in playing piano. So I got into Berkeley as a piano student, and I did one semester as a piano student, which was kind of a drag because I didn't want to play piano, but at the same time it was great because I was forced to learn all this jazz stuff. I learned how to comp piano from comp jazz piano from a lead sheet, which was like a totally new world for me because I had been trained, reading Beethoven and Bach and Brahms and stuff like that. So I learned how to play a more kind of improvised and looser piano, which helped me later in terms of what I could do in the studio. And after one semester as a piano student, I switched over to the vocal department and I started studying voice, and that was great because it gave me a base upon which to strengthen my voice, which I really needed to learn how to do.
So you're classically, I mean, you're trained, you're musically trained, you have a voice training, piano. I know now you play the drums, you play bass, you play everything. But when you get out of Berklee, at what point did you say, this is going to be my career? Because, people go all different routes. I know someone who plays violin for Paul Anka, but she also plays things. When did you decide that you said, all right, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, it was actually before I went to Berklee. Right after I got out of high school, I went to Boston University for one semester, just because I didn't really have the guts to go to music school at that point. I was just scared. I knew I wanted to play in a band, but I didn't know how, so I went to BU, and I thought I'd just get a sort of like general education, and I'd find people to play in a band with at BU, but I didn't. I didn't know how to find musicians. I was very, very pathologically shy. And so after a miserable semester at Boston University, that's when I applied to Berklee. I transferred for the second semester of the year. And my goal was just, going to Berklee, my goal was to find people I could play in a band with, because at that point, all I wanted to do was be in a band. And I was obsessed with the idea, and that was my only goal. I wanted to be a singer and guitar player and songwriter in a band. I wanted to front a band, and I was a little bit deluded maybe, but I think that you have to be, if your goal is so clear, you have to be single-minded about it in order to achieve it. And so, yeah, I knew when I went to Berklee, all I wanted to do is play my songs in a band.
Now, when did you start writing songs? I mean, when did you feel, two questions in one. When did you start writing songs, and when did you feel you found somewhat of your voice?
Well, I was writing songs as a kid. My mom used to tell me, or she reminded me that I would always constantly be making up songs. Like on car rides, I'd sing out the window. I'd sing about the landscape that we were passing in the car. I'd spontaneously start singing songs about my environment. And then later, when I started taking acoustic guitar lessons, I wrote a couple of songs back then, and then I wrote some more songs in high school. So it was always something that I did, I think. And I guess I got more serious about it when I started the Blake Babies, my first band. And when we got together in college, that's when I was able to really develop some of my high school poetry. I had poems that I set to music in the Blake Babies. Like, there was a song called Swill and the Cocaine Sluts that was on the first Blake Babies album, and that had been a poem that was published in my high school literary magazine. That became a song.
Now, how did you end up in the Blake Babies? You said you met them in college, but I know Boston is a very hip scene. The comedy scene was always great there. You have a lot of colleges, so they're into better music. They're into something new. They're very open-minded. Did you guys take off right away when you got together, or what was your path to getting somewhat success?
It was actually hard. We struggled a lot. I remember having to we would take like we got this rehearsal space down in the edge of the South End, which at the time was a neighborhood that was kind of gritty, I guess you'd say. Now it's all gentrified and expensive, but back then it was kind of quiet and run down, and maybe not that safe, but we would take the number one bus down Mass Ave from Berkeley down to Albany Street, and then we would get off the bus and we would walk about a mile to this grungy rehearsal space that had no heat in the winter, and so we'd be freezing. I'd be carrying this heavy bass for a mile down Albany Street, which was not the safest neighborhood, and then we'd go and we'd practice in this freezing rehearsal space, and then we'd lug our guitars back to the number one bus and take it back up to Berkeley. And so, and then we did all the stuff that you have to do when you're starting out in a band. You get yourself on a club gig opening for someone on a Wednesday, you have to give out a bunch of free tickets, and if you can get a certain number of people in the club for your set, then they'll let you open for someone on a Friday night. And so we did all stuff to sort of try and build a following, and it was a slow process. It was not an overnight success story at all. We worked our butts off, and we made recordings. We tried to do everything really cheaply, like recording and overnight in studios, an overnight session where we would be getting out. Sorry, I keep losing the ability to speak. We'd be leaving the studio when the sun was coming up, because it's cheaper to record in the night session, and then sending demo tapes all over the place, and no one wanted to put our first record out, so we put it out ourselves, and then sending albums around. So it was a long, slow, boring story.
Now, you guys recorded a few albums. Why did you end up breaking up?
Well, that's a complicated question. What's a complicated answer? How do I answer that? I think that I felt that I wanted to play with some different people. I felt that we had gone as far as we could musically as a combination of people. I wanted to play with new people. And I think Frida, the drummer, was kind of, she was just tired of being in the band, and I think it was just as sort of, we all kind of wanted to go our separate ways.
So you go your separate ways, and now where do you go? Because, I mean, what's your direction? Did you have people in mind that you wanted to play with when you said you wanted to play with other people, or were you just basically starting from scratch?
It was a little bit of being terrified, because I did not have a real clear plan of what I was going to do. I had some people that I got together to help me make my first solo album. My first solo album, Hey Babe, I had a bunch of friends play on it. My friend Todd Phillips, who was playing in a band called Moving Targets, and then Bullet Lavolta, who were Boston bands. And he played some drums on that album, and he ended up playing with me in the Juliana Hatfield Three, and I still play with him now sometimes. And just got a bunch of people together to help me throw that first album together. Evan Dando played a little on it. Mike Watt played some bass on it. Lots of different people helped me out.
Well, how did you know him? Like, Mike's been on my show. Mike's a trip. He's great.
Yeah.
Still living in San Pedro after all these years, and it's just...
Pedro. He would correct you. It's not Pedro. Pedro.
He's so cool. Like, we talk, and I love when he sends an email. It's always like on the bottom, it's like on bass or something like that. It's just so funny. How did you meet Mike?
He was. I met him when the Blake Babies did some shows opening for Firehose. I think that's when I met him for the first time. Mike Watts was really interested in trios. Blake Babies was a trio, and he was very supportive of other trios and interested in other bass players. And so he was always really supportive and totally cool and generous to us. And what an excellent character he is. What a great guy. He helped us out in the beginning.
Now, as you're getting helped out in the beginning, what is the music industry like for a front woman? You know, I mean, it's something that, you know, music's been weird like that. You know, I mean, when the Runaways were there, and then the Go-Go's, and it was all different. How did the music industry treat you? Did they treat you as something different that they know will do very well, or did they treat you like one of the guys because you had the balls and you had the voice and you had the songwriting?
Well, I think I had blinders on at the time. I wasn't really tuned into the sexism around me, or the sexism in the world. I wasn't really tuned in, or I was trying to not pay attention to it. I guess I had my head down. I was with my gang, you know, John and Frida and me were this band. We were a gang, and we were trying to just do our thing, trying to get ahead and do it with integrity. And I was lucky because John and Frida were really allies. John was a feminist. You know, he was a great guy to be in a band with in those early days, because he was. We were just comrades, you know. And I felt protected by them, and we were all on the same mission. And so I think I was kind of insulated from a lot of the stuff, and plus we were this scuzzy little indie rock band, so there was never any pressure for me or Frida to try to conform to the beauty standards of the mainstream. You know, like no one was telling us to get our tits out or anything. Right. You know what I mean? Like there was no manager telling us, like, look, you have to put on some makeup and you have to sit on the laps of the music directors at the radio stations. No one was telling us to do that. We were just a scrappy little band that no one cared about. So in that way, we were a little bit insulated.
Now, when did you feel like your career started taking off? At what point? I mean, you know, you're recording albums, you're doing well. I mean, you know, it's like anything. You're living your dream, and you know, a lot of people. If you're living your dream, that's the best thing that can happen. When do you feel that your career started kicking into stride, where you started getting the recognition that you deserved?
Well, I don't know if I deserve it. Actually, at the time when I guess when I was signed to Atlantic Records after that first solo album, Hey Babe, I was signed to Atlantic, and then when I guess that was kind of when I felt like, oh wow, like something's happening here. But I did not feel like I deserved it at the time. When I started to hear my song on the radio, My Sister, I was like, I felt like an imposter. I felt like I wasn't worthy of all the attention yet. I really felt like I had not earned it yet. And so as a result, I was never really comfortable in the spotlight, or also for many other reasons, but personal reasons. But I felt like it was a whole lot of hype about me that I didn't believe, and I don't know why anyone else believed it. That's how I felt at the time. I was not that happy.
Well,
although I have to say, the most exciting thing was always hearing myself on the radio. When I would go to a new town and I would turn on the local radio station, and if I would hear my song, I was always like, wow, that's the best feeling in the world, hearing your song randomly on the radio. For me, that was the height of success.
Now, do you remember the first time you ever heard one of your songs on the radio?
Well, yeah, it was actually a Blake Baby song. It was probably a demo cassette that we had, one of our early recordings that we had hand-delivered to one of the college radio stations in Boston, and they played it, and we were all listening around the radio like in the olden days before TV, when the family would listen to the radio. The band was listening, and we were all so excited. It was like, I remember that moment. It was just the first time we were played on the radio. It was so exciting.
Well, everyone says that. They always remember it, because it must be a great feeling, because that's you. Now, do you remember the first time you heard without the Blake Babies, heard one of your songs on the radio?
No, I don't remember. That's a moment I never. I was kind of in a daze at that point. I can't remember a lot of it. I remember the Blake Babies days more than I remember the Atlantic solo days.
Now, you don't remember a lot, but how did Atlantic find you? Was it something that you had to really hustle, or they heard your album and they just wanted to sign you? Because I hear nightmares about people trying to get on a label.
It was complicated because at that point I was involved with Mammoth Records, that was the label. It was a new label in North Carolina who had signed the Blake Babies. They were the only label who wanted the Blake Babies, and they were a new label. And then when the Blake Babies broke up, I was still contractually obligated to Mammoth under the leaving member clause. So Atlantic was talking to the Mammoth guy, the Mammoth people, about acquiring Mammoth or acquiring me in my contract. And so it was a little bit of, labels were talking to Mammoth about me and getting involved. And at that time, a guy named Danny Goldberg was the head of Atlantic. And I liked Danny, and he seemed like he was kind of honest, and he had some music knowledge, because he had worked with bands before. He had worked with Led Zeppelin and lots of other people, and he seemed really smart. And so I went to Atlantic because Danny Goldberg was there, and I felt that he would sort of take care of me and protect me from the sharks. And then he was great and for my first album, and then he ended up leaving Atlantic, and I was kind of screwed after that. Everything was downhill from there.
Now, I know early in your career you did Letterman. Do you remember what that was like to do his show? Because I've always heard the studio's really, really cold, but I heard he loves music so much that he's really a big fan and likes to help people get a break.
Is that the one? Is that when Evan plays guitar with me?
I don't know. I know you played Letterman. I'm not sure.
Oh, I don't remember. I don't remember. I feel like that might have been. We were called at the last minute as a replacement for, I think, Aretha Franklin, who was supposed to be a musical guest, but she had to cancel. I think that was the story. And I was living in New York at the time, so I was able to say, yeah, definitely, I can do that. And I asked, if my memory's right, I think I asked my friend Evan Dando to come and play on the show with me, just so I would have a friend with me. Because I was going to play with the Letterman house band, and I think that's what happened. And I don't remember it being really cold, and I also don't remember Letterman being really into me. He was nice, I think, but I don't think. I have heard that also, that he's very supportive of certain artists.
Now, you're releasing a lot of albums. When do you feel like you're getting somewhat where you're starting to get a following, where you're a draw, where people will come to see you? Because, that's a big part.
When you have a song on the radio and a video on MTV, that's when the crowd starts to come out. With TV is really... I had a video, or a couple of them, playing on MTV, and that's when the people started to really show up for the gig. And, that's kind of like a double-edged sword, because when you're not on TV anymore, not as many people come to see you. But it was fun at the time, having these big crowds all of a sudden. But I also knew, like I said before, I kind of knew that it was a lot of hype and it wasn't going to last, and I was right about that.
Well, in your career, you've played very many different music styles. Do you know, you say you do things on a whim, but what's the difference between the albums you've put out later in your career than the albums you put out earlier in your career?
There's not really that much difference. I never really changed the way I approached making records. It was, I've been really lucky that none of the labels I've worked with have ever tried to pressure me to do anything that I didn't want to do. Everyone always left me alone to make my records. No one ever really got involved in the studio trying to tell me what to do. I would have told them to go,
You can say
screw themselves. Anyway, yeah, like go jump off, whatever. I understood that I was kind of this like quirky artist, and I have a certain style, I have a certain knack for doing what I do, and no one can really change me. And I've always been the same, and I've always been doing the same basic thing. I've always had the same approach, and for better or for worse, I kind of do my thing, and that's what I've always done.
Well, you've done your thing, and you started a record company, right? Old Records. How did that come about? And it's like that's I always think it's amazing when people start. It's not like now where you can record a movie or a video on a iPhone. Back then, to start your record company is pretty ballsy.
Yeah, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was saying I started a record company is really just another way of saying I decided to just put my work out into the world without anyone helping me. Because I just wanted to try it. I wanted to see what it was like to not have anyone, to have no pressure from anyone, to not feel like I was going to let anyone down, and to be able to work at my own pace, to be able to put a record out and not have to go on tour to promote it if I didn't feel like it, not have to promote it if I didn't feel like it. Because when I'm working with a label, I feel an obligation to promote it a little bit, just to help out the record company who has put a bit of an investment into me or into the record in question. I feel like I want to do my part to try to help them recoup their money. You know what I mean? But with my own label, I didn't have to do anything I didn't have to do anything I didn't want to do. I didn't have to do any interviews. I didn't have to play any shows if I didn't feel like it. And but it's also a whole lot of work that is kind of a drag. Like I had to do accounting and business things and mailing. I'm not into math. I had to do addition and subtraction. I had to go to the post office, things like that. Stuff that's not music.
Right.
Not musical.
You're like, no, I don't want to do this crap. I was born to play, not to mail.
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. It's complicated now that musicians can do everything themselves, and they don't need a label anymore. But that's complicated because now musicians have to do a lot of the stuff that other people used to do for them, like promotion and stuff like that.
Right. Because it's so big. Social media is so big that if you don't have a big following, I know people who are on TV shows who are amazing actors, and they're like, I only have 2,000 followers, and my agent's giving me a hard time, and I'm like, but you're on a TV show that's doing well. It's sort of disgusting to me at times that people...
It's horrible. I hate the internet. Can I just say that right now? I hate it. I think it's bad. I think it's a bad force in the world, and I really think that ultimately it will prove to be very, very destructive. I mean, it already is. It helps us promote ourselves and our work, but while we are promoting ourselves on social media, we are wasting time and energy that we could be putting into our work. That's how I feel about it. It's a horrible double-edged sword that social media. I really, really dream of disappearing from social media, and I will someday. But it helps me to be able to make a living. It helps me to promote my work and to keep people aware that I still exist and that I'm still making albums. So I'm trapped in a way.
Yeah, but what I also hate about social media is people are just mean. I think about everyone's dependent. Like, people just write stuff that Man, if I wrote something like that and my mother saw it and I'm 55 years old, my mother would ground me. Okay?
No, it's awful. It's awful. It's just awful. It is. I agree with you. And I think that, I don't know, I really fantasize about disappearing. And I will someday, but it complicates and dilutes life, I think. And there's a lot of ugliness that is really comes to the fore, comes to the front of the line when you're looking on social media. It's just like all the ugliness is right there, and are we really better off seeing that, weeding through that every day of our lives? I don't think so.
No, it's crazy. So now I want to ask you also, I know you did an album on Pledge, what's that called? It's Pledge Music. And now when you did that, for some of your donors, you gave them artwork. And I know you went to school for art for a little bit later in your life. Have you always loved art? I mean, and how do you find the time to create musically and play guitar and play these instruments and then take the time to get away to create art?
It's hard. That's a question that I'm always trying to answer myself. How to go back and forth between music and art, and also writing. I'm always writing prose, and it's hard to shift from one to the other. But like sometimes I feel like I wish I could just immerse myself fully in painting and drawing for a year. And I did that. When I went to art school, it was a full year, full time, and I took that year off from music, and I was just in art school for a year, and it was really great. It was fantastic, but then I have to make a living, and so I went back to music because that's my job. I mean, I love it, but it's also my job. And so, yeah, like I have this weird situation where music is like my day job. So music is my job, and then I paint and I write privately. I sell some of the artwork, but I'm always doing art and writing, and people don't see all that stuff. I have tons and tons and tons of artwork and writing that no one's ever seen or read. So yeah, I try to balance them. There's just like not enough time in the day to get it all done, but I try to do music, artwork, and writing. I try to structure my day so that I can get a lot of work done in those three different media.
Well, you sit there and you do create a lot. I mean, you look at all the solo albums you've produced. I mean, recorded. And if you go forward with your career, like you read like 2014, you recorded "Needle in the Hay" and people loved it. How did you pick that song?
Some of the things that might seem like there were choices that I made were really just like opportunities that were thrown my way, or chance, or choices that other people made for me or offered to me. Like for Needle and Hay, I think that the album of Elliott Smith covers was in progress, and someone said, "Hey, do you want to contribute a song?" And I said yes, and they said, here's a list of songs that are still available. And Needle and Hay was available, and I grabbed it, and I said, I want to do that one. Because I really loved that song, and I had it was one of my favorite Elliott Smith songs, and I was lucky that I got in when the song had not been taken, before the song had been taken by some other artist. So that's how that happened. It was just kind of offered to me, the opportunity.
Now
then I recorded it for that album.
And it got you some, people were like, "Oh, that's a great song." Is it the same feeling when people say it's a great song if it's someone else's as it is when they say it's your great song?
It's different, but it's the same. I mean, it's great when. I think it's great either way. If someone loves a cover that I've recorded, that makes me feel good. It makes me feel great to have someone say, "That's a great Elliott Smith version. That's a great version of an Elliott Smith song." That makes me happy. but it also makes me happy if someone likes the song that I've written. So it's kind of all good. That's like they say, it's all good, man.
Now, in your career, Pledge Music has helped you a lot. That must be a very good feeling to see that people want to hear music from you, so they're pledging. I mean, I can imagine if you did a pledge thing, back in the day, if someone did a Pledge Music and they got $8, that would sort of suck. You'd be like, no one wants to hear me. But it must be good that your fans really adore you and they're going to help you do your project.
It's great, yeah. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I'm lucky. I realize that it's a good position to be in, that, people are willing to support me and encourage me with money and with, other kinds of encouragement. It's great. And I do try to count my blessings often, and I do that.
Well, counting your blessings, didn't you play at Paul Westerberg? I mean, if I was a musician, that would be like a dream.
Yeah, well, like, real life is always a little bit more complicated than fantasy life, but yes, there were moments when I would be working with Paul in his basement working on music, and I would think to myself, like, wow, my teenage self, the mind of my teenage self would have been blown by this right now, by the fact of my being in Westerberg's basement working on music with him would have blown my teenage mind. But real life is different than fantasy life. Real life is more complicated.
Right. Now, I got to ask you another thing. You've done a little bit of acting. How did you end up in My So-Called Life?
At the time, I was an Atlantic Records recording artist, and there was there was a new show in production called My So-Called Life, and as I remember it, the show people contacted the Atlantic people to see if I would be interested in writing a song for the Christmas episode of the show, which they were working on. And I guess that at the time I was having some commercial success. I had this song or two on the radio and the video on MTV and stuff, and so people were aware of me, and they thought I would maybe be right for the song they needed. And I went to meet with the people from the show in LA, and I guess when they met me, they thought that I might be right not only for the song but also to play the character that was going to sing the song. So that's how that happened. They were originally just working on putting a song together that would fit this scene or this episode, and then I ended up playing the character who.
Did you see a similarity between that and making videos? Because they're two different mediums, even though they look the same. It's a different process.
It's really different speaking words than it is lip-syncing lyrics. It's hard. I didn't, at the time, I really didn't understand acting at all. I didn't understand how they did it. I was in awe when I would be watching the other actors work, and I think I had a scene with Claire Danes. It was a long time ago. It was before the show had even aired, and I don't think anyone knew who Claire Danes was, but I think I remember shooting a scene with her and just being, like, blown away by what she was doing in the scene with me. Like I didn't understand how she could lose herself and become this other character. I didn't understand how it was done. I didn't understand acting. Essentially, the director helped me a lot to just sort of try to figure out how to say the words and make them sound real.
Right.
I didn't understand how it worked.
Well, you've been on TV, you've done videos, you've toured, you played music, you do art. Now, you also wrote a memoir.
Yep.
How'd that come? Was that something that you really wanted to do, or was someone said, "Hey, can you do it," or what's up?
I really wanted to write a book. I wanted to see if it could be done. I mean, I knew that people wrote books. I knew that there were books, and I wanted. It was just a challenge to myself. I said, I'm going to write a book just to see if I can do it, if I can see it through. And so I started writing. Initially, it was just a tour diary. I had taken extensive notes on a tour I had done, and so I wrote. It was strictly a tour diary. Like, this is a tour from start to finish. This is in detail. This is what happened. And then, just kind of at the time, I was taking I was in a writing workshop at this place called Grub Street in Boston, which was new at the time, and it was like a writing center. They offer a lot of different kinds of workshops, and I think it was a memoir writing workshop. So I was working on writing, and I was sharing chapters of this work in progress in the workshop, and I was working, plugging away at this tour diary, and then the Grove Street people invited us to a party that they were having at the Grove Street headquarters. It's kind of a long, boring story, but it's how I found my book agent. I went to this party that Grove Street was throwing. I think it was a fundraiser for Grove Street for the writing workshops. And the party was packed with people. It was downtown Boston. Packed. They had the leader of my workshop had invited me to read a chapter of my tour diary in progress at the party, because different writers were reading at the party. So at this party, I got up and I read a chapter from my work in progress. And at the party, there was this literary agent who had never heard of me. He didn't know my music, didn't know who I was, but he really liked the chapter that I read, and so he became my agent, my literary agent. And he helped me to put a proposal together for my tour diary, and which was a whole other long process, putting the proposal together. And he was able to sell my book to this publishing house called Wiley, and then it was my editor at Wiley who suggested that I add some of the history of my musical career interspersed with the tour diary chapters. So that's how that happened. I started adding all the other information about my musical life.
That's awesome.
That's the story of my book.
Now, you know, early in the interview, and I've read you say you're very shy. What is it like for you to get on stage? Do you get once you're up on stage, I'm sure it's like home to you. But do you go through when I used to do stand-up comedy, I know this one guy who used to sit there for every show. He'd pace back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. At that time, he could smoke in clubs, and he would smoke 3 cigarettes in 5 minutes, and then get up there and he was fine. How do you prepare yourself being shy, but you also know that the crowd's going to like you?
Well, and I don't know that, actually. You never know. Well, I think it's easier to go on stage than it is to walk into a party. That's how I feel. Because on stage, I have this ready-made conversation ready to go, which is songs. I already know what to do. I'm gonna play these songs for people. It's sort of like I'm protected in a way. I have this musical persona that I can rely on, who can be witty and charming, and I don't have to really think of anything else. I just do. That's what I do, and I know how to do it. So, and at this point, after having played so many shows, I'm pretty. I don't get nervous very often. Once in a while, I'll get nervous if it's a particular night, or if I know someone is in the audience that I'm nervous about, or if it's just it's weird. Different venues have different feelings, and certain nights I'm nervous, but other nights I'm just totally blasé about the whole thing. Because I've been doing it for so long. Yeah, I think I'm more confident now than I ever was. I feel pretty comfortable going on stage.
No. Are you going to tour for the Sings the Police album?
Yeah, we're going to tour, but not until January, after the Christmas stuff.
Now, did you do the artwork for it?
No, that was that was my friend Nicole Anguish.
Because it's cool. It's really cool looking.
Yeah.
I really dig it. So.
Yeah, she's great. She's a great designer.
Anyway, I want to thank you for coming on. You know what I'm going to do later tonight? I'm going to listen to your Olivia Newton-John album.
Oh, you should. It's some really kick-ass songwriting. It was really challenging to learn and to play those songs. They're very much more complicated compositions than, say, the Police songs, which by comparison were much simpler and easier and more fun to play. Olivia Newton-John, it was great. It was a great experience, but it was definitely challenging.
Now, the Police one, though, I read on your website, which people go to the website, Juliana Hatfield. It's a great website, lots of info, shows all her albums. Go out and listen to her albums, listen to her music, and buy her music. Just don't listen to it, buy it. And it says you're going to have translucent gold editions of the LP. Because my fault, and on this show, I always call them albums. And some people are like, they're not albums. And like for you, I can say it's actually an album. Why did you decide to put it on vinyl?
That's something that, the American Laundromat, my label, has a lot of fun with vinyl, different colors and it's just sort of like something fun that they like to do because it's fun. All the different colors are really fun, I think offering vinyl, just basic, even if it's just standard vinyl, black vinyl, whatever color that is, black. I think it's black. I think it's really good to have vinyl as an option because, me personally, I don't like downloading music. I don't stream music. I think it all sounds like crap. All digital music sounds like crap to me, and I don't like the experience of digital music. So I think it's great to just have other options like vinyl and cassettes and CDs. I think some people prefer that to digital downloading.
Well, that's awesome. And people, go to the website and pre-order this. If you're a Police fan, you're really going to dig this. It's something that I listened to it. I got it 2 days ago. I've listened to it twice, and it's just cool. It's a great it's a great album. And now you're on Twitter, right?
I am, yeah.
It's at Juliana Hatfield.
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
And do you tweet a lot?
Not so much lately. I'm getting kind of burned out on it, but I do from time to time. I try to stay. I'm alive on Twitter. I'm still.
Thank you, people. Go check her out. Check my website out, coopertalk.net. You can find over 745 episodes. Email me, coopertalk.net. Twitter, I'm at coopertalk, and you can also listen to me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and Stitcher. So let's go to JulianaHatfield.com. I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you next time.